the executive in residence with the Management and International Business Department at Loyola University, Maryland. And it's my privilege to have this interview conversation with Barry Benjamin, chair of the Management and International Business Advisory Board, and a longtime stalwart at PricewaterhouseCoopers. We've done these interviews so that our students have a better way of understanding careers, understanding some of the career choices they can make by listening to what some of our board members and other people in the community have found. So Barry, thank you for joining us. Could you take a moment and just tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of what you've done briefly, and then we can get into some interesting questions about how your career came about?
Sure. Well, thanks, Dave. Appreciate it. And I'm delighted to be here to share some thoughts with the students. As you mentioned, I was a partner with PricewaterhouseCoopers, or PwC. I retired in 2018. And during my career at PwC, I started in the firm's Boston office, transferred in 1997 to the Kansas City office, and then came to Baltimore in 2000, and I'm still here in Baltimore 20 years later. My career focus within the firm really moved into, after a few years of kind of trying to find myself in public accounting, in the asset and wealth management space, mutual funds, alternative funds, real estate funds, and all the service providers that serve that industry. That was my client-based focus and my skill set-based focus. And as I moved up in my career at PwC, I became the U.S. leader for that industry group, or sector group, as we called them. And then I did that for about 7 years. And then I was also privileged to also be the global leader for that sector. And I did that for about 7 years. So after about a 37-year career at PwC, I got to see and do a lot of things, different parts of the US, as well as a lot of exposure to our international network, which I thoroughly enjoyed. And beyond sharing the MIB advisory board, I also have the privilege of teaching a course this semester in international business. So I'm really enjoying that. I'd much prefer to be in class, as I'm sure the students would as well, but we're making the best of the virtual environment right now.
So in that vein, Barry, then it sounds like students, should be thinking, obviously, that their job is more than is certainly a sustenance, but they should be thinking about it, particularly coming out of school, as kind of what kind of a learning opportunity it's going to offer them, right? In other words, almost looking at it more from either skill enhancement or, horizon broadening than, well, I gotta pick a career and I'm gonna go into that career. Is that a fair way to say that?
Absolutely. And as I said, only 1% of the people that start in public accounting ever become partners. And so the majority of those folks they leave over time. Some leave fairly early in their career, some leave a little bit later in their careers. And so they've all been, open to some change. Some of them specialize in an industry and go to work in that industry. And some of them then, learn skills. Maybe it's controllership or becoming a finance person. A lot of my friends went to grad school after starting with the firm, and then ended up going into the investment or finance areas and completely changed their careers. And so, any place you go to look, it's really not a lot different than when you were choosing your college, as far as how you decided where you wanted to go. It was about, where am I going to get the best opportunity to learn? And it's so important, and I've said this to all students I've ever talked to, is that when you're looking in the marketplace, you really don't want to be looking for a job in the very narrow sense. You want to be looking for a career path, and you want to start your careers in a place where, yeah, you get paid and you want to maximize your pay. Yes, I get that. But you want to work someplace where they're going to help you grow your skills, help you learn, and help you advance your capabilities. If all you're doing is looking at the clock, you're not getting the most out of that career path you've chosen. And most people who change jobs, it's usually some level of dissatisfaction with the work they're doing, or the company they're working for. And so
Right.
it's important to really think about not necessarily working for the highest paying job right out of school, but working for a place where you really feel like I can learn a lot from this environment. And today's students don't tend to stay in jobs as long as when I was coming out of school. And so, the firm you go to work for, the company you go to work for, might not be the firm you're working for in 3 years. And in fact,
Yeah.
don't even worry about that. Worry about how am I going to enhance myself so after 3 years or so in this role, I'm going to be better. I'm going to be more complete as a business person. I'm going to have more skills, and I'm going to have acquired something that'll make me more valuable in the marketplace.
So, what should our students be doing now as students to prepare themselves, whether that's mentally prepare themselves or, skill wise prepare themselves? What are some of the things you think that they should do to, and I'll try to misuse the financial term, hedge their bets in the future, to figure out how they could be uh, in the best position to learn and then take advantage of that learning as they go forward? What are
Sure.
some of the things you'd recommend, Rick?
Sure, it's a great question, Dave. Well, first thing I think it's important. They have to start by looking in the mirror. Who are they? What really gets them going? What gets the engine started? What kinds of things do they really like to do, and that they're good at doing? And how can they take that skill and that passion and turn that into the job market and saying, okay, where can I demonstrate that? Where is that going to really get me excited to be a part of? And if they're not honest with themselves, you can tend to easily just focus on, I'm going to maximize pay. I'm just going to take the highest paying job. I may not like the place. I'm only going to do it for a couple of years. They're not going to do as well or learn as much as they could if they really start with what is it they really want to focus on, what really do they enjoy doing.
Yeah.
Then they really have to look at and do some research, talk to people, talk to through handshake, leverage the alumni base. And it doesn't have to be people in industries they think they want to be in, but more about what led to success. What were the skills that are really important beyond what your courses are. The courses are a means to educate yourself, increase the breadth of your knowledge and some of your skill sets. But it's about what really does it take to succeed in a career path. And what about networking? What about relationship building? How to establish trust with your team, with your client, with your customer, however it works. What's the way to organize yourself so that you can accomplish all the things that you need to do to succeed in the tasks you're doing and in the broader job or career path that you're after. So that's really important as well, is acquire those other typically called softer skills, right? It's not about more finance knowledge. Most companies, when they hire students, are thinking, I'm going to teach you the technical stuff that you need to know. I expect you to know certain things. And I really am looking to know that you are someone who can acquire knowledge and learn how to synthesize it and turn it into action on the job. But the real technical aspects of the specific job you're in are going to be taught to you. And so, beyond that, what is it that you need to do to try to make yourself the most successful person in that job? Those are really more the softer areas around leadership and networking and relationship building.
So let's kind of flip that to the other side of it. So, as somebody who's obviously hired a number of people in your career, if you had to kind of share with students, what is it that an employer would look for in a candidate that would give them the sense of comfort that, hey, this is going to be, we think this is going to be the right hire, right? This is going to be a good hire. Because I think, our students need to think beyond the fact that, well, it says I need to know how to use Excel, so I know how to use Excel, because everybody knows how to use Excel in that job or they won't be interviewing for it. So what are some of the things that, I think that could help our students think about what an employer would be looking for and consequently what they should maybe be bolstering?
Sure. Well, I think different employers are all different as far as the aspects of what they view as a candidate who is likely to be successful for them to have. But I would say some of the ones that are probably more common than not is ability to have be agile. handling curveballs, because as we all learn, you study things in a textbook and they tend to be fairly straightforward because they're trying to teach a concept through an example. But in the quote unquote real world, nothing kind of goes according to plan. There are always curveballs. There are always things that don't operate the way they should. Schedules aren't met. People get sick. People leave. Clients don't do what they're supposed to. Customers don't stick to what they asked. Change their mind. How do you handle change? How agile are you at being able to kind of change course, readjust? And that's a hard thing to decipher when you're doing interviews, but examples of how students have done that, how they may have changed majors in their career, how they've handled projects at school, how they've handled projects at internships or jobs that they've had, summer jobs included, are great ways to demonstrate change agility. That's a really important skill. Communication, whether it be written or oral, being comfortable communicating and being able to communicate succinctly, clearly, and in a professional manner is really important, because most of what happens in business is some way communicated. And if you're able to carry on in a meeting and get your points across clearly and confidently, that's really important. If you struggle with that, that comes across in interviews. And so practicing those skills, growing those skills, finding opportunities while you're a student to practice those skills are really important. And then the last thing I would mention is, and it's one that can sometimes be a filter, right? You mentioned Excel skills. If you don't have them, you're not going to get interviewed. Another one is getting the best you can get out of your GPA. I know in my firm, GPAs were very important. Not so much because we wanted to hire the smartest people, which of course we did, but we recognized smart people come in a lot of different sizes and shapes and forms. But we really looked at it as a bit of a marker for work ethic. And most companies want to know that you're going to work as hard as you can to succeed. And GPA is kind of a barometer of, how hard did you try in doing what you were doing in classes. And so some classes might not be of that much of interest to students, and maybe they didn't do so well, but telling your story about, this is the areas I really loved and I really focused on them, and you have to be able to tell that story about why you're going to hit the ground running, and you're going to be a good contributor to the company.
Barry, those are really helpful. I mean, I'm trying to reflect on them as you were talking, and a number of things that really our students, if they would take your comments to heart, actually are sort of in the midst of being able to prove it. What is being done? What are they doing now in the midst of COVID, right? Where life has changed. How are they dealing with that, stress, and, how agile are they there? What are they doing to demonstrate their work ethic, right? Are they sitting back and saying, well, I can't do anything because it's, everything's shut down, or are they enhancing themselves in some way, right? Actually showing that they've got that kind of grit and that kind of motivation. And then I think the idea of communication is really critical. I don't, my business experience was always such that most of the communication, and we did a lot of writing, but most of the communication was oral, right? You're walking down the hall and your boss taps you on the shoulder and says, by the way, update me on that thing. Or,
right.
You're in a meeting and all of a sudden you have to stand up and speak. And maybe we do our students a disservice by making them write so much. Maybe we should make them talk more. But then notwithstanding all of these things, I think really, I can see how they should resonate with our students. And it's good, clear, practical advice. Sure. Any final words before we sign you off here?
No, I think all of the folks that they'll have a chance to hear from the advisory board, I think would share, our desire for their best success, but also our desire to be helpful, and however they would like, or to whoever they would like to talk to, they should feel very free to send us an email. I think most of the advisory board is in the handshake program. Or if they, reach out to you and get our emails, we'd love to hear and talk to students, and they should not be fearful about reaching out. I mean, we're all doing this and participating on the advisory board because we care about their success and we care about their future. So, this is not a burden at all. And we would be delighted to talk to them.
Wonderful. Well, Barry, that's a great way to kind of exit out of this interview. So I want to thank you for the time. I want to thank you for sharing the insights. I certainly want to thank you for the service you've given Loyola and what you've offered to do for our students. I think it's wonderful. So thank you very much, and I hope you have a great rest of the day.
Thank you, Dave.
You're welcome. Okay, good.